Okay. Hello everybody, this is Einar from Unity Center. Today we have Anette Carlstrøm from Sweden. It's going to talk about today's transition times, Deeksha, and a little bit about her own story. It's always exciting to hear how people has come to where they are. So today I wanted to start with the big things and go down, because maybe the big things are more exciting, and then we get people to follow up the whole thing here. So I want Anette, thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you on our YouTube site.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be invited here. Thank you.
On your website, you, as many other people that I have interviewed, are talking about these transition times, the big quantum leap, and all these things. And this is something that's happening every 26,000 years. What is your view on this big thing?
It seems we are in a time where there is a need for a transition in consciousness, a global planetary evolution of consciousness that is just evident as we turn on the news or just see the world. We have become very global, whereas before we didn't have that possibility to know what is actually happening on the other side of the globe. Now we know instantly if something is happening. So we are affected by each other like one big family or one big unit, we can say. Before, that wasn't our experience on this planet living here. So as we now are seeing that some part of our world are in deep needs of a transition of consciousness, of seeing that we need to care about each other, becoming more human, to help each other in a profound way. That's where I see the need for a evolution in consciousness for all of us. And that is where my heart is coming from.
But this is the same thing that the Mayans are talking about, and many of these others are talking about. Bashar on internet is talking about the transition times, and where dimension shift they're also talking about. Is that the same thing? Another, we're going up in fourth, fifth dimension. Is that is the same?
It could be described like that. The important thing is that you become focused and centered in reality as it is. You know, it's also talked about mindfulness, right? So to be in the presence of now, I think many teachers are stepping up to help people in this. Let's be conscious of what is going on with us as individuals, and then being able to affect the people around us. If we start with the inner world, the outer world will also be affected, so that we can help each other in that sense. So in that way, I see transition in consciousness for the individual can be very important in these times.
And some individuals are very little interested in this, and more interested in war and very aggressive. What about those people that are dominating the world?
Yes.
And somebody's talking about dimension shift. It's some people are going to go up in dimension, other people are not. Is this something you know about, or?
Depends on how you describe going up in dimensions, because they're described in different ways. We are living in the third dimension here, right? So scientifically it could be explained, these different kind of dimension, what it means. So fourth dimension would be the sense of time and space. And many people are experiencing that time and space is changing. It seems like the time is going faster. We are not so bound by that kind of perception anymore. And it's not that the actual seconds in the clock is moving fast. If you look at it, it's still the same, but our perception of it is changing. So in that sense, you can say that we are moving up in a dimension. The fifth dimension would be a point of love. If you were to explain it just scientifically, not in a consciousness kind of way, scientifically you would say that is one point. So time and space is no longer included. The third dimension, the second, the first, all of the dimensions is included in a higher dimension. It's like a second dimension is an explanation of like a painting, a line from A to B. That would be explaining second dimensions. Third dimension does include first and second. So in that sense, fourth dimension, which is time and space, you also have the other dimensions. So it's not it's really a very grounded way of looking at it. So point of love is not where we want to be in. So from that sense, a fifth dimension is what's being born into the planet right now, where we are in a, from the heart, in a point of love, of being including all the people and beings on this planet. And I believe that's what's needed, a transformation in consciousness on a planetary level for us to sustain life on this planet. There needs to be a shift in our perception and awareness. And in that sense, we can say, yes, we're moving into a higher dimension, being perceived from a higher perspective, not just from the obvious third dimension where we're living in, but from a higher space from where I feel is called the intelligence of the heart. We are connecting with each other's heart. A person coming from the heart, you cannot be in war and conflict, because you can't help but feeling love and unity with that being. And if we start introducing that to more and more people, it has also a scientific effect that if more people step up into that power, it will affect the human planetary consciousness.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And your way of working is, you have been working with craniosacral for many, many years.
Yes.
And in this way, you have been working with the body, and you see what happens in people when they open up. And now you're working especially with Deeksha. I think most people have heard about Deeksha. You go to India and you teach Deeksha and come back and give Deeksha. And things. But can you explain what Deeksha really does?
Yes, Deeksha is a special energy transfer to help you connect with that intelligence of the heart. And it's very different for each person. I find that it's very personal. Like if you have a religion, if you belong to you have found your path, this is my way, then that needs to become your reality. So the power of the Deeksha is the power to connect with that intelligence within you. And it's very different for each person. That's why you can experience it in a very different way. I believe if we are going to have a transition of consciousness within ourselves and in this world, that is the power that needs to be experienced. So the Deeksha is more a very free energy transfer, free of cultural background, free of religious background. It can be initiated into a person who can give it, and at the same time that person can keep developing their own journey, but you can still give from that presence of the heart, which is the same in everyone. So it's not like one person has more presence of the heart than another. It's the same. It's like one pool of the ocean. So you're just helping the other person experience their own inner sacred self, or that intelligence of the heart. So that is what the Deeksha is, and it can be given in many different ways. Very natural is a touch on the head. It's more like the traditional way it's been given from thousands of years back in the tradition of the Hindu or the Vedic tradition. But it can also be given through intention or through a chant. I oftentimes give this energy transfer through a chanting, and or just, it's also called Oneness Blessing in English, and it explains more what the actual energy is. You can never force a Deeksha or a Oneness Blessing onto someone. It describes it like it is a blessing. It is a wishing from the heart that I wish you well and I connect in your heart. And then that person's heart can say thank you very much, like an email. It's getting an email of light. It's like, okay, I can use this for something else. You're wishing a blessing for it. So that is the nature of the Oneness Blessing of the Deeksha.
I want to go a little bit deeper into it. We were talking a little bit before the interview, and you're talking about when you got this blessing or Deeksha, you could come into your heart and also feel the traumas you have, and maybe expand the trauma or accept the trauma. Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, my way of looking at it, it's coming from the sacrocranial work that I've been working with for the past 16, 17 years. We work with the cranial, the skulls and the bone, which has the spinal fluid moving through the nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, meaning it needs to be a movement, a flow of life. And that is how I experience the flow of our heart, the flow of life flowing through us. It's the same type of flow. And in the cranial work, you are interested in getting a still point. You want it to be still, in stillness, like a center of a tree. There is a sense of peace. And in the center of our heart, the center of our beingness, there is a point of a stillness in there. And if you can meet what is in here in stillness, let's say you have a negative experience or a trauma or something here, if you were to be able to be still with that and not run away from it, but actually be with it, that is how the cranium works. If a person spinal movement can be in a stillness, still point, what happens is this phenomenon that we as a therapist get to experience because we don't do anything. We just experience the person's spinal fluid is in a still point. It has experienced or discovered something in the body that is not in order. And this is the same with our emotions. Like if we see something, this is not okay. If I am still with that, and if the nervous system is still with that, what happens is there is an automatic expansion of the spinal fluid in the person's cranium. And we as a therapist just follow that expansion. As that expansion happens, there is some healing taking place in the different systems of the physical body. And the same thing happens then in our emotions. As we do this process in a workshop, in a group, we can see in our own individual lives how this energy of the intelligence of the heart is giving the expansion when we can just be still with what is there. Instead of trying to fix it or do something, if we can allow for that expansiveness to happen, there is a healing. That was my own experience discovering this process.
Acceptance.
Yes. Good word.
Acceptance, yes. But how do you give Deeksha? I see people, it looks really easy.
It is.
Easy work.
Yes, it's very easy. It's very enjoyable. Most people love giving Deeksha so much they're just, waiting for a possibility to be able to use it. You can use it in so many different ways. Right now we see different parts of the world as having problem, right? And we can't go there to actually be giving that light to the people because it might be not possible. Or your heart is touched somehow to help. You can go to a map and you can hold your hands over that, or you can from your heart just wish that light goes into that group of people or to that country or to that person who really needs it. And so it's just a matter of whoever gives the Deeksha, we learn to connect with our own heart, to our own presence in the heart, and asking in there. So we as an individual, we don't give the Deeksha, because that would be like not a good idea, because we are not maybe filled with light, all of us, right? But we have, all of us, a sense of that presence of light inside. So we connect with that and saying to the light inside, please help this person. I feel connected from empathy in my heart. Please help this person. And energy goes from that person's heart to the people or person or situation. And in that sense, the person who gives the Deeksha is not involved at all, except connecting with the presence. And then the whole thing happens.
Because then we're into this, I heard some people don't like Deeksha because I think they mean that when you give the Deeksha, you can, if you're not in balance yourself, you have lots of traumas, you can transfer some of your bad energy to another person. How does that work?
With the initiation to be a Deeksha giver, that is removed. So when you are giving a Deeksha, you need to be going through a course, a process for that. And then that person has started their own journey. They know what is needed in their own lives to be healed. And that could take as long time as that person needs. In the meantime, they can help because they have connected with that presence. So the actual initiation allows the person only to give the presence of their heart into that. And let's say that we usually recommend that before you give a Deeksha that you're in balance yourself, or like that you're in a state of gratitude. That would be the highest possible way to give a Deeksha. If you feel gratitude, if you are right then in some kind of negative emotion, just wait and give the Deeksha, because when you start giving the Deeksha to that person, the Deeksha energy coming from your heart, most of it will go like to your own self, to your own brain, your own emotion. So you giving the Deeksha will start feeling really good, but it's like a faucet, like a water flowing. Most of that water is going to you giving it. Little few drops goes to the person, receiving it. So it's not so good. Nothing else goes, it's few drops. But the person giving it feeling great, you know. So we are suggesting, why don't you feel kind of good yourself before you do it? Because it's better for the person receiving it, you know. Otherwise, they give you drops. Why don't you just, you know, pour the whole thing, you know? And it's okay if you are aware, right? If you're aware, that is a still point. Let's say you're aware, I have some trauma here, I'm aware of it. That's a still point. It does not go over to that person. If you're not aware, that creates problem in the person. So it's not like you have to be perfect being to give a Deeksha. You just need to be aware of what your different issues are. Your divine, your inner sacred self is working on that issue. And as you are giving the Deeksha, you can have full flow if you're in gratitude that you can help the presence in your heart who is like the king, the ruler, the boss, you know. I'm helping this inside of me to help that boss inside of that person to awaken. So it's really an inside job between hearts, right?
Yeah.
As we are working on our own issues.
Yeah, it sounds like doing a good thing. But I heard also you had some, you had a course last weekend, and you were talking a little bit about the scientific things around this. Do you have any proof that it's working, this Deeksha?
This is what we are eagerly awaiting, the scientific field. You know, I'm not a scientist, but I'm scientifically very interested. I come from that kind of background. I come from an academic family. So it's not necessarily a spiritual thing, this. And this is where my work is heading. Is this really spirituality, or is it just being a sacrocranial therapist? I see it is the still point and the expansion. The heart is actually having the same kind of movement. There's a rhythm in life, an eternal rhythm. So I'm interested in that perspective from biology, physiology, scientific, maybe quantum physics is already explaining this kind of process. So I'm very interested in combining those kind of brains, that kind of a view from my own perception, to bring in the intelligence of the heart, which is already scientifically proven to have like 5,000 stronger magnetic field than the actual brain. So there's something here. And also when the actual fetus was born inside of us, when you were made, the first system that was made was the nervous system and the skin cells. And that is what we're working in the sacrocranial field. And that has definitely a pulse, a slower pulse than the heart. It has a pulse of 8 to 12 times per minute. And it is going between being active and resting, being active and resting. And that is like the pulse of life. So from that perspective, I'm looking also in expansion of consciousness then. And my question is that really a spiritual thing? Isn't that more like knowing about really a higher law of the universe, and a higher law that's, it's not like out there, it's more like you coming into clarity, like it's like the person discovering the gravity. It's not like he made that, he just discovered it. You know, when you throw something up, it comes down. There's a law, he discovered that. So it's more like, I think that humanity is not so interested in spirituality in itself, because it's oftentimes you think it's some kind of religion. But if we can see that it's some kind of law in the universe, it's working like this, still points and expansion. If we can discover this, I think, and experience it for ourselves, that's more of a way in, I think people today are interested in, who don't necessarily want to be inside of a religion unless it is their own experience that, yes, that's how I feel, the Christ in the heart, or the Buddha inside, or however it is. Everyone should experience this in their own personal way. I feel it's very important.
I saw on the website it said that over 100 million people has received Deeksha.
Could be, yes. Deeksha is in like over 100 countries all over the world.
When did it start?
It started in 1989 with a phenomenon out of India. That's why it's maybe looked upon coming from India, but it came from the founder of the Oneness University. It started from Sri Bhagwan, and he's not coming from a spiritual background. His father was actually an atheist and his mother was a Krishna devotee, and they were not particularly religious in that sense of conditioned in that way. So he experienced, and he had a strong experience when he was 3 years old, that a golden ball of divine grace appeared in front of him. He didn't know what this was, but he was made to chant a mantra into this, like an ecstatic sense of consciousness. And he saw as he grew up because this mantra kept chanting inside of him for 24 years non-stop. He was absorbed into that. And his father, you know, the atheist, was wondering what's going on with my son, you know. But it seemed he was very intelligent, he's very good in school and everything. So yes, let him be, you know. His mother's wondering, are you going to marry the chair? You're sitting in the chair, you know. But there was a lot of joy around him and a lot of wisdom. So he saw that I'm experiencing reality in a different way than most people around me. And it was this perception of suffering that he didn't experience the same way everyone else was. And he thought, this probably needs to be shared with people, and this could be helping. And he received the information around 2012 there will be a planetary evolutionary shift in consciousness, and this could help in that. It's not like we're going to create a new religion that would go against the whole phenomenon. It's just that this access to divine grace, this field, this unified field of consciousness, started then really when he was a child. And he does not want this to become a path to follow. He just says, whoever wants to give this in their own way, through whatever culture or way you want to do, it's completely free. It cannot be, you know, forced into a certain way. Then that is where the Deeksha started. And 1989 is where the actual phenomenon started, when they got transferred in the school that then Sri Bhagavan had started. He was the headmaster. Nobody knew he had this kind of capacity. Or that this had happened inside of him. One of the children in the school, he received an inner golden light, and he came into the headmaster and said, sir, because that's what they called it, the headmaster, sir, there's a golden being inside of me. And then Sri Bhagavan knew, I know what's happened. He said, and he had a meeting with a little girl in the office, and he said, could you give it to her? He just said like that. And he's a little boy, he goes, okay. And he looked at her like that. And all of a sudden she shared later, because she didn't know anything about chakras or spiritual things. It's an academic school, right? And she's like, she awakened to her different chakras with golden light was inside. And the little children then transferred this very easily without knowing that you can't do this. It happened. And the school had like Christian children, Hindu children, Buddhist children, any kind of different background, because he's very open to all kind of children. And they all had this experience of awakening to that presence of light inside in their own different way. But there were certain things that were in common that they could do, and they could collectively affect, like the weather, you know. Sri Bhagavan came out in the schoolyard and said, children, you know, look at the farmers are not getting any crop because it's not raining. Can't you help it to rain? And the children, you know, go, yes, how do we do it? You know, they said, well, you have to gather together and you start talking to the clouds and tell the clouds to start, you know, pouring down rain. So they gather together and they talk to the clouds, and rain gushing down, you know. Bhagavan came out running, children, it's raining too much, the crop's getting disturbed, you know. So they had to gather again and say, a little less, not so much, you know. So in this way they played, you know, it was like a game. They discovered the higher laws of the universe without having the actual information first, because that could like come in the way of being concepts. So this is how the actual phenomenon started, 1989. And from then on, the parents of the children also discovered what has happened. You know, we also would like to learn. And what is called Oneness University today comes from that, of having courses where you can learn about development of consciousness. You can be ready to experience your own inner golden presence, or the light, however you relate to it. And it's very important that each one does it in their own way. That's not to follow somebody else. You follow your own inner higher self. So that is what the courses there are about.
Yeah. But just to cook it down. Yes. So Deeksha is, it looks like for me now that it gives people of today that's into their brains, thinking they have debts and lots of problems. Then you have a Deeksha, you can experience a kind of contact with your inner self, and a kind of a little bit blessing then.
Yes.
And you feel, it's good to live. Suddenly it's good to live. Then maybe they are also into this consciousness shift.
Yes,
and that's for this. What I understand that this big consciousness shift, the quantum leap, have to be so many people on Earth to really happen.
Yes.
So this Deeksha thing is an easy thing to do to get this happen.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Time is running, but I would like to have a little bit about your story. In your website it says you're a mystic, enlightened, and all these things. What's that?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
I don't think it says that I'm enlightened on there. But
Yes,
maybe.
yeah, it does.
Yes? Not on my
Mys-
website.
no.
Mystic, yes.
Yeah, mystic.
People call me a mystic because I see things that not everybody sees. But I think everybody can see what I'm seeing, which is the presence of the light is in here. And see these words, awakening, enlightenment, and all this. I'm trying to, everything I can to avoid those kind of, because it puts one person up here and one person down here.
Yes.
So that's why I don't like those kind of labels. But if other people use it to describe something, then so can be it. But I think it's our natural state, and I don't think it's something to reach, because we're already there. What needs to be done is some washing off of things, and then you'll see who you really are. It's really much more simple. But my own journey was exactly this, of discovering who I am in here. That is to see what is actually there in the fact, not what I would like to have there. See, knowing intellectually that you are this light, this Satchitananda Parabrahma, which is the Sanskrit words that is being talked about for thousands of years. Everyone knows about this. That's who you are. You are that light. You are God. But what is actually there? See, this I was introduced to, and holding the hands of that light, the light saying, let's go into a journey to see and discover what is actually there. So that still point, that seeing of what is there, don't be afraid of it. Don't run away from it. Don't try to analyze it, try to understand it, because how can you? It's maybe been there for thousands of years, and coming from your ancestors, and coming from this and that, and the time in your mother's uterus, so many things happen, why you are like that. So that was my own discovery of when I was allowed to just be with what is there, this transition of expansion happened, because that golden light, that presence was there. And that's why some people experience or explain it like an enlightenment process. So it's the same for everyone. You can call it for whatever you will, or the awakening. It's the awakening to that you have a presence here. But when you do that, when you start the awakening process, you need to be brave enough to see what is actually there then. And for me, I've been interested in this since I was 3 years old. I've been a spiritual seeker since I was 3. Different parts, living in Los Angeles, trying the different kinds of ways. But not until this became very practical in an easy sense did the shift start happening for me. And I feel that was a journey that started 2002 for me. That was when the shift started to happen. This journey started. Then it has gone in different kind of level that could be called this or that. Doesn't matter. Because the journey is still the same. The still point, being with what is there. This is what I am ready right now to see. And there were some traumas there that I was able to see it. And having connected to that presence, there was an expansion, an acceptance. Like you said, this acceptance, that's what is there, isn't it? Not that I wish it away. It's like, it's there. And when I could meet all of these different traumas in me, I could also see it in another and be okay with it. There was no judgment. There's no trying to fix. I just knew if I'm still with that person, with that trauma or negativity that I've experienced myself, there's a healing taking place for that person, because we are still with that. And there's an expansion, because that's the natural law of the universe. So it's not really so complicated. It's very easy when it's your own experience.
But you have gone a long way to come where you are today.
Yes, my journey started maybe when I was 3. This starts with seeing that you're not fully fulfilled inside. You're looking for something. And I come from a very happy family. I have no traumas in my family, which is strange that I would still look for this. Usually people are content with what they have. But a so-called spiritual seeker comes from, you're looking for something more. Either you have a negative trauma, or you just have existential suffering. You're just looking to be free of something that is not right. So from that way, I've been looking a long time. But I believe that all of us alive on the planet right now have been looking for thousands of lifetimes for this. We are also in sync with the planetary evolution of consciousness. So before, there's always been in times of our planet possibility to shift in consciousness. A few people have always been at high levels of consciousness, masters and so for gurus. But this time we have a possibility to planetary evolution in consciousness, which is everyone can actually attain their true nature, whatever you call it. And that is the work of this, that I think we all, like you and everyone at your center, we're all working towards that, helping release the trauma and the suffering in our own different ways, so that we can see our true nature, what is actually there. And however long that takes, it doesn't have to be taking a long time now, because we are in sync with the times. The time is right.
Time is right. So like, now it's enough just for the Deeksha, and you're
things
there.
Start happening very quickly now. Yes.
Usually in the last part of the interview, you can, if you have a message to the world, you can tell the world a little bit. What is your main goal, or what do you want to tell the world? What's your real main message?
My main message. Oh, my main message would be that every being on this planet would discover the center within them, that stillness, the presence of the heart, the power of the intelligence of the heart, whatever you call it, however you relate to it, just start relating to it in a very practical way in your daily living. Not like a philosophy concept, something nice like that, but in an actual, real way. Let it be governing your life. That is my wish. And I'm so grateful that I got this opportunity to share this. And I'm very grateful that you invited me, Anette, to your beautiful center and to the unity which carries the same in my heart as the center. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.